Its collapse rocked the crypto trading community. Now the former boss of trading platform FTX is facing criminal charges. Sam Bankman-Fried has denied knowingly committing fraud. Now that claim could be tested in the US courts.
From the pinnacle to the pit. Sam Bankman-Fried, the disgraced crypto tycoon, was arrested in the Bahamas at the request of the United States, seeking to charge him after the spectacular collapse of his cryptocurrency platform, FTX. The 30-year-old crypto celebrity became an object of attention last month as he suddenly filed for bankruptcy as FTX suffered a liquidity crunch. The company left more than 1 million clients unable to access their funds. The liquidity crunch was caused by FTX users pulling $6 billion from the platform in 3 days. And it came after Bankman-Fried secretly moved $10 billion worth of FTX customer funds to another one of his companies called Alameda Research through a digital backdoor. At least $1 billion of that has reportedly vanished completely. Finally, on November 11th, FTX filed for bankruptcy protection and Bankman-Fried stepped down as chief executive. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission has charged Bankman-Fried with orchestrating a scheme to defraud investors. Bankman-Fried has previously apologized to customers, but said he doesn't personally think he has any criminal liability.
Well, let's discuss the collapse of FTX and arrest of Sam Bankman-Fried with Nicolesh Day from CoinDesk. And actually, Nicolesh, CoinDesk did some crucial reporting on this story, so it's good to get to speak to you about it. When did the problems with FTX begin?
Hi, thanks for having me. Arguably, FTX's problems have been kind of baked in since its foundation, based on some of the public filings that we've seen and some of the allegations we're seeing from authorities, where FTX just allowed its sister company, Alameda, to borrow funds, which turned out to be customer funds, which Alameda was unable to pay back, leaving a pretty massive hole on FTX's balance sheet. But kind of, more specifically, this entire story kind of happened over the last month or so, where FTX went from being this massive titan of industry to being this company going through bankruptcy.
Yeah, the Alameda revelations are what sort of led to the collapse. But we've just seen John Ray, the current CEO, even testifying before Congress. And he read out a long list of things that they've since discovered that was wrong with FTX. How was a company that was so big and handling so many people's money able to be mismanaged so badly?
A big part of it seems to be that FTX was controlled by a fairly small group of people who just didn't really engage, apparently, in some standard practices for bookkeeping, for governance. There wasn't really a central, board of directors or anything like that to oversee the main FTX entity. There wasn't much in the way of documentation. So these are just some of the allegations that have been made in recent weeks, but it sure seems like what happened was FTX went from, being this kind of brand new company when it was founded to, growing rapidly to, being this multi-billion-dollar multinational entity while maintaining the exact same practices that it had as a startup. One of the allegations that Mr. Ray made in the House Financial Services Committee hearing today was they were using QuickBooks, a fairly unsophisticated retail piece of software, for its entire bookkeeping purposes, which is not something you'd expect from a massive entity.
Yeah, it's almost as if the business outgrew the people that were running it, isn't it? But has this case with FTX, has it shaken the confidence of crypto traders? Is there not fear that there are other FTXs out there?
I think there definitely is a major fear of that now. One of the biggest things about FTX is that it had gone for months and years saying, we are the reliable company, we are safe, we are something people can trust. And a lot of people took them at their word. So, right now, the fact that we're looking at a bankruptcy where there could be potentially over 1 million customers who have lost access to their funds, not to mention the other companies that kept their own funds on FTX, assuming FTX would be safe. the ramifications are huge. There is definitely a lot more scrutiny, I think, of other crypto companies like FTX, and a lot more questioning, or a lot more, uncertainty about whether or not these companies are indeed safe for consumers.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to watch where this goes next. Nicolesh Day from CoinDesk, thank you so much for bringing us that story.
I want to bring in Stephen Ehrlich now. He is Director of Digital Assets Research at Forbes. He joins me from New York. Stephen, it's good to have you with us. I want to make sure I've got this correct. You interviewed Bankman-Fried this week, and he was reportedly prepared to testify before a U.S. congressional committee today, before the arrest took place. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, and thanks for having me. I've interviewed Mr. Bankman-Fried multiple times, and I did interview him yesterday morning Eastern Time for about an hour in what I believe to be is his final interview as a free man, at least for quite some time.
I mean, you interviewed him, and he wasn't sitting there with his attorneys. Now that he's been arrested, we can assume that his willingness to be so candid with people, that's over. What was the impression that you got from him? Was he aware of the gravity of events that he was at the helm of?
That's an interesting question. It's hard to tell. I mean, sometimes when you start hearing numbers like $32 billion, which was the company FTX's highest valuation based on its most recent fundraising round, it kind of gets abstracted from reality. In truth, the company had about 1 million customers. It has a debt of about $8 to $10 billion. And when he gets asked about his legal jeopardy, and I asked him about that at the very end of our interview yesterday, he keeps saying that, or he kept saying that it's about the customers. I'm not worried about my own fate. But at the same time, there are some indications that he was aware of the jeopardy that he was in. For instance, he hinted in a question that I asked him about why he resigned. He suggested that he was getting pressure from legal counsel, and it was indicated to him that if he resigned, it might make things a little bit easier from a legal perspective. He was ready to testify, as you asked previously. He put together about 18 pages of testimony that he was going to submit before the House Financial Services Committee, and he recently switched legal counsel again. Because I think he understood the jeopardy, the legal jeopardy that he was in. But at the same time, he's always been a master at using the press to kind of build his image. And I think he felt that for as long as he was free, he was going to try to do that as much as possible.
You know, based on what you heard in the interviews that you've conducted, do you think that maybe the authorities made a mistake in arresting him when they did today? Maybe they should have let him testify first?
That is another interesting question, because I know that Maxine Waters, the chair of the House Financial Services Committee, said yesterday she was disappointed that they're not going to be able to hear Mr. Bankman-Fried's testimony in front of the committee today, and it's just current CEO John Ray there. So I think that there is some benefit to hearing him testify, but at the same time, he has been very public. He has given more than a dozen interviews, and frankly, in many cases, he gets asked the same questions: where is the money? Why were there such poor financial controls? Where are the audited financial statements? And he keeps giving the same answers. Things like, I don't have access to the data. I'm trying to this is my answer from the best of my recollection, so on and so forth. Wholly unsatisfying answers. So while, yes, it's always great to have as much transparency as possible, it's hard to imagine that he was going to give any major revelations in front of the committee because of the legal jeopardy that I'm sure he knew he was in.
Well, Stephen, unfortunately, we're out of time, but please come back and talk with us again, because I have a feeling that this investigation, also this case, is going to last a long time. Stephen Ehrlich with Forbes. Thank you, Stephen.
Great. Thank you.